How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I've missed you all. I have missed you all loads. So today I'm going to be talking about getting paid. Now, as a freelance photographer and creative, I have, let's face it, I've been knocked a few times. Like, I have done work that I've not been paid for, and as much as it upsets me and annoys me, it's one of those things you just have to learn from it. Unfortunately, early on in your career as a creative, you're probably going to face the same situation. And I think that largely comes about because, you know, you go from a hobby event and eventually monetize that hobby. As you go through that process of monetizing that hobby, what will basically happen is you'll reach a point where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can or I can't, and you won't have the experience to be able to, you know, do invoicing and do things like that. So you'll leave yourself open basically to getting shafted, as I call it, and it will happen. It's just one of those things. There are a few things you can do, in my opinion, to protect yourself, and these, you know, are learning curves that you will kind of, over time, you know, you'll come to understand these things, and by watching this video, hopefully it will fast track that whole process. So one of the best things you can do to protect yourself in terms of making sure you get paid is think about the payment terms before you've even got the work. Now, that works by having a set of robust terms and conditions on your website, and those terms and conditions will be, they can be set that the client agrees to them once they pay a deposit or you commence the work. And by having that, you ensure that the client agrees to your terms and conditions. And that just means if at a later point there is a contest like overpayment, or there is a dispute over payment, you have a set of robust terms and conditions that will protect you if you have to go and deal with it in a legal place. If you don't have those, you just look unprofessional, and it's very difficult to win those circumstances. So first thing is a set of terms and conditions. The second thing I would recommend is having a professional invoice system. Now, PayPal, you can join up to PayPal Business and you can use those for invoicing. QuickBooks is really good as well. Having a system that will help you manage your invoices is amazing. So it sends them out, will keep a track of them, as in like where they are in terms of their process. Have they been paid? Have they not been paid? Having that transparency will help you massively. You know, you can do it through an Excel spreadsheet, of course, and that's more cost effective. But I find using something like QuickBooks is so much more efficient and more professional. So there are a couple of things you can do to sort of protect yourself. If you end up in a situation where, you know, you've done the work, you've got a set of terms and conditions, you've followed all of those procedures, and they've still not paid, in the UK, and I can only specifically talk about the UK, there are laws and regulations that will protect you. So basically, if you send an invoice or you do work for somebody and they don't pay you within a 30-day period, that invoice is deemed as late, okay? So your initial 30 days is kind of like the period to get paid within in most commercial agreements. Some public agreements can be longer, like 30 or 60 days, or you can agree beforehand. If they haven't done that, if they haven't paid you, you've got a couple of choices in terms of how you pursue it. The first one is like mediation. So you can pay for a mediator to bridge the gap between you and them and start a communication or start a conversation to get the payment. I personally have never used it and I could never see it working, so I've avoided it. What you can also do as well is you have what's called a statutory demand. That basically is a legal demand for payment of work done. Now, you don't have to be a lawyer or a solicitor or anything like that to send one of these out, and I'll put a link down below so you can, you know, understand what this is. But they are really good and really strong at basically, you know, showing people that you're serious about getting your money back. So I would say that that's a good port of call, and I've used it previously before and have been paid by using it. You know, by using it, people have gone, okay, right, they're deadly serious, and then lo and behold, they've paid the money. You also have small courts, so you can take people or companies to a small court to chase basically outstanding payments, cost associated with that. So if you go that route, you are going to have to pay some money to sort of go that route and hopefully get your money back. But one of the sort of the biggest things that's helped me over the years, and this is just like a bit of a tip, is the more and more experience you get through working with customers that pay, the better you'll get at identifying customers that are not going to pay. And if you have that feeling about a customer, like, do not be afraid to not work with them, or set terms in place that ensure that you're protected. And what you will tend to find is clients that are going to do the dirty on you, those clients won't want to work with you because of the way you're setting up that business relationship, and they know that you're doing all things official. They won't like it. It will make them feel uncomfortable because they are in, you know, the environment of knocking people. And as soon as everything starts getting a bit official, they start to, they don't like it a little bit. So they kind of, you know, won't work with you. So for me, in terms of like working with people, there's a deposit system. People have to pay a deposit before I commence any work. And then once I do the work, they then pay me before their work is released. And you can protect work by sending them, you know, if you're a photographer or a videographer, watermarked content and stuff like that to ensure that the content isn't used before it's paid for. There's loads of things you can do like that. But, you know, the best, if you're banging your head against the wall with chasing invoices, you know, from my experience, a statutory demand is one of the best methods you can use to chase that money, and has worked a few times. Now, you can't just use it straight off the bat. And what I would recommend is you do try to communicate with your clients as much as possible. If you can't get hold of them through a phone call, send them an email telling them you tried to call them and what the message was about. That way you can say, okay, right, I've tried to call you. This is what the message is about. I've sent you this all in text. There's 2 ways I've tried to communicate with you now with this same message. Leave them a voicemail. You know, you've followed every, you know, respectable step there is to chase the money. And then if it still is getting to a point where they're not paying, if you have to go to a court, you can represent all of this information and show the steps that you've taken. That is going to sit really favorable on your side, and people will look at that and say, well, he's done everything he can. It's totally their responsibility to pay the money. Like, it's not like you've approached it unprofessionally. So that would be my advice. Hopefully that helps you guys, and I'm sorry I don't know enough about the legal workings of other countries to be able to give some advice on that. But from a UK perspective, hopefully that helps you in terms of like chasing invoices. And yeah, don't be afraid to fire customers. If you think they're going to do the dirty on you, don't work with them. And yeah, until next time, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you all soon. Take care.